since the retreat. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so Thecla was to be arranged to be married.
How do you spell Thecla?
Thecla. And she saw Paul preaching outside, and she sat by her window for 3 days in silence and fasting. And her husband and mother were like, why are you not paying attention to him? You're to marry him. You should be paying attention to him. And she just sat in silence and fasting and not eating. And she freed herself of that. But because she...
Freed herself of what?
Being in the arranged marriage.
And who was the arranged marriage person?
I can't remember.
Someone else.
Name.
So
Paul was outside preaching.
But her parents didn't want her to do the arranged, they wanted her to marry Paul?
No, they wanted her to marry the arranged person. They didn't want her spending so much time on Paul when she was arranged to be married.
Because she was meditating fasting because Paul was out doing the gospel channeling. Got you. Okay.
So with that, they sentenced her to death by fire.
The death code, this is what they want me to talk to you about. Okay, go ahead.
And with the fire, she was at the stake, and the fire started to burn, and then it immediately started to rain. So that was number one, saved herself. So then she went to follow Paul and began preaching alongside him. And King Alexander, not for certain on that, but it was one of the kings, King Alexander the Great, I believe.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
And he wanted her hand in marriage. And he was asking Paul, he's like, well, I'll give you the biggest dowry that you could imagine. And Paul said, she's not mine. I don't own her. She is her own being. I mean, just powerful.
Right.
And King Alexander wasn't having it. He saw it as treason and defying the king. So he, too, sentenced her to death in a arena of wild animals. And the first animal that came out was a lioness. And the lioness immediately came out and she bowed at her feet. And then she turned around and started fighting off the other animals. And the other animals were dying at the hand of the lioness. Thank you.
Everything
so
else is
much.
stirred in, but the cinnamon is just on top.
Perfect.
If you end up needing anything a little softer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So with that, all the animals started coming out, and eventually the lioness had lost her life in defending Thecla. And Thecla went into a pit of fiery sea lions who were on the prowl to attack. And she went into the waters with the sea lions without fear, and she came up and she said, I baptize myself. And all the women who were chanting for her death in the arena, they saw that she baptized herself, and they too believed that they could baptize themselves. And they started throwing spikenard and rose and cinnamon and cardamom into the arena and sedated all of the animals. And all the animals were sedated.
Okay, that's the code from the dream. Okay, go ahead.
So then the sedation, I have that
the
in the
sacral
Thecla
technology. We were stabilizing the sacral, and I was just doing that at the fire with all the sexuality entanglements and the misunderstandings around sexuality with the masculine. When this whole story explains it all. Okay, is that it?
So I created that blend from that. And I intuited, muscle tested the drops for Thecla blend.
Okay, so Thecla, are you here? Yes, okay. So, do we need to communicate any more about what I was just going into? No. Talk about the sacred of the sacral. Sharing those harmonies with another. And is that it? She was just showing me like she was harmonizing, was it Paul?
Mm-hmm.
And to get the energies to go up, they weren't together, they were holding like all of all of isness together to rise the energies up and lift up, all